A story about one mother who had only one goal in her mind: apprehending 10 cartel members and bringing them to justice. One woman who decided to take the law into her own hands, and she embarked on some very dangerous path all by herself, completely alone. But unlike Liam Neeson, who has like a special kind of special skill. What am I talking about? He has like special set of skills, and he will track you down, he will find you, and he will kill you. Miriam Rodriguez had nothing. Now, if you watched another show called Narcos, especially the part with Mexico, then you know how bad of a situation down there is with the drug trafficking and all the violence and basically all the bad stuff. And basically the small city of San Fernando, the city in which Miriam Rodriguez grew up in, was unfortunately not different. It is a small city with about, I believe, 30,000 residents, if I'm not mistaken. And it is kind of famous for its agricultural sector, right? However, it is also famous for some very, very disturbing and dark past, especially when taking into consideration two events which occurred in 2010 and in 2011. So, what happened in 2010? Well, 58 men and 14 women were shot by a cartel called Los Zetas, and I believe it is some kind of a branch of a larger cartel. And I actually read that Los Zetas are basically a military branch with some very, very dangerous people, and their primary goal is not drug trafficking, but other very dangerous things. And one thing that's included in this not good package is the thing that we're going to talk about today. Now, the reason behind this massacre is quite idiotic, so to say, because Los Zetas were believing that these people were being recruited by an opposing cartel, and they all decided we're gonna take them out. And of course it turned out that these were just normal, ordinary people. Sick, man. But of course this wasn't enough. So in 2011 they actually started hijacking buses. So it were like commercial passenger buses, right? And they were hijacking them with one objective. So after they were done, they would kidnap people and they would violate women, and they would take men and force them basically to fight till death in some kind of a gladiator style or something like that. So the reason is also bizarre, because they wanted to separate the winners and recruit them into their own cartel. So basically they were seeing winners as some kind of very strong and durable men, and they always need the man like this. So the scary fact is that final death toll was 183 in 2011. So really bad stuff, man. Now, as you guys maybe presumed, the people that were living in San Fernando were used to daily occurrences such as, like random drug trafficking and shootings and other things like that. And it's completely unnatural that these kind of things were considered normal in this city, but so it was. However, after these two events, people will really okay, man, that's enough, I'm gonna pack my bags and I'm out. So some kind of mass exodus or exodus, I'm not really sure what the accent is, followed, and a large number of people decided to leave the city. So I think it was about 10% of the entire city at that time. So it was a lot of people. And one person that was among these people was actually Miriam's son, called Luis. And he decided he has enough, he's gonna hit the road. However, her younger daughter, called Karen, decided she's gonna stay because she still needed to finish school, education, right? And she also wanted to help her mother because they had like some kind of small family shop, and you know, she figured her mother, you know, will need her help. So that proved like a really bad decision and a fatal one. Now, it was January 23rd when a I don't know if you guys can hear, but I think my neighbors have like intimate time right now, so reset. It was January 23rd when Karen was stopped by two trucks that came from the side and basically made like sandwich and forced her to, you know, stop and turn off the car. So the trucks were carrying armed men. They stepped out, took her, and, you know, left. Now they took her to the family home, and they proceeded, of course, to gag her and to tie her up. Now Miriam was not at a house at that particular time. I think she was in the United States doing some work in some hospital or something like that. I can't really remember right now, but it has something to do with the hospital. However, her brother was home. I mean, he was not home, but he showed up on that particular day because he was a mechanic and he needed to do some work on a family vehicle, right? So he knocked on the door and abductors opened the door, and when they saw him and he saw them, basically his fate was sealed. They pulled him in, gagged and tied him as well, and that is the time when they took off with both of them. Now Miriam got back and logically heard the news, and it was not some kind of secret because Los Zetas were like really known in that region, and you know, people basically knew that that was them. After all things were pretty much clear, Miriam requested a meeting with the cartel directly and sat with one guy. Now she gets the meeting and sits down with one guy, and the guy shows up and claims that he's not the part of the Los Zetas cartel, but he will help her if she gave him $2,000. So he will basically do some investigating and help her in the process of finding her daughter. Of course, like any desperate mother, Miriam obliged and paid him $2,000. The deal was that he was going to give her a daily updates, you can call it, of his little investigation, and keep her posted about any new intel, you know, informations and things like that. But the calls from the guy stopped after 1 week, and you know, it was a blackout. After some time, she started getting calls from some completely new members of the cartel. So they were demanding, you know, a little bit less money, so $500-600, but multiple times, and every time she agreed to pay because basically, like any mother would, she, you know, didn't want to lose any kind of hope of finding her child. And every time she paid, there was no answer. At this point, she really started to lose hope. Now she decided to move in with her other daughter called Azalea. But before we proceed further, I'm just going to say some really important thing that will prove crucial for the rest of the story. When she sat down with that guy that was allegedly not the member of the cartel, the guy was wearing that kind of portable radio station, right? And during their conversation, she overheard, because the radio was turned on, she overheard the name Sama. So remember that name, Sama. Fast forward, she moves with Azalea, and after a few weeks of no information, no updates, no nothing, she basically just woke up one day and said, I can feel that Karen is no longer with us. So I presume it's some kind of mother-daughter connection, because I really believe in these kind of things. Mother can really feel when something's wrong. And at that point, living in San Fernando and knowing basically what a city is like and knowing what Los Zetas do, she just at that point knew. And she said to her daughter, from this day, I'm not going to rest until I get my revenge. And so it was. Now, the thing is that she tried to do the right thing. I mean, the logical, normal thing. She went to the police and reported the crime and wanted to do the things in right manner. But she wasn't receiving any help whatsoever. One more time, if you watch the show Narcos, you would see how corruption is implemented in the very top. So the whole system was corrupted. God knows how many people were actually working with the cartel. So they just, trashed the door in her face. And that is the time that she decided, I'm enough of this, basically bullshit, and I'm gonna do all this by myself. I'm gonna embark in a solo fight. The first good news is that her brother, Mechanic, was actually still alive, and he was set free the very first day they were abducted, because obviously he wasn't the target. And Miriam's first task was to sit down with him and interrogate him in details. After she was finished, she was able to confirm the existence of a person named Sama. So it was the guy that she sat down with. So Mechanic gave exact description of a guy that was sitting across her in a meeting. Enter social media, Facebook to be more exact. And I'm not supporter of social media at all. Actually, I don't have Instagram, I don't have TikTok and things like that. However, in this particular time, social media was like really able to help. The first thing she did is logged on her Facebook account and searched for the guy named Sama. And she was able to track him down rather quickly. Now, you might maybe ask, what the hell the cartel member is doing on Facebook? I mean, why the hell they have social media accounts? It's like free information. But again, we're going to back on the part when I said that there's like the whole system is corrupt. So present, not was, is corrupt. And God knows how many people from the politics are in the pockets of the cartel itself. So basically, these people in the cartel have the freedom to walk around and say whatever the hell they want. So basically, it's we can do, if we can do that, we will do that. So there's no need to hide, there's no need to, anything to cover their tracks, because they know nobody basically can touch them. And that's it. So she started scrolling his feed, his images, I don't know what, and one particular photo caught her attention. So there was Sama, and he was with some girl that wore ice cream uniform, and she was able to recognize the logo from the shop, and it was actually an ice cream shop nearby. The next logical step was a stakeout. So she was parked in front of the ice cream shop. I don't think she was parked right there, but a little bit further, and she was there every single day for God knows how many hours. She was waiting for him to turn up in that shop. And after a few weeks, Sama arrived. Now she tracked the guy, Sama, to his actual house and marked his address. But what was the problem? The problem was that she needed a little bit more information before the authorities move in to take the guy. If they take the guy, right? Because we established that there are a bunch of corrupt people. However, there's always some good people on the task force. So what was her next move? Her next move was actually brilliant. So she decided to cut her hair short, dye it in red, so red color, get a fake ID, and she still had a uniform that left from her previous job. So she decided to pretend to be somebody else and conduct a poll in the neighborhood. So it was a brilliant move by her side. She conducted a poll and took all the names basically she needed for her little case file. After that, she went to the authorities, and luckily there was a federal agent that agreed, you know, to meet up with her after she got so many rejections. So, and it turned out that this guy was a good guy, right? Exactly what she needed in this situation. And this federal agent, which is anonymous to this very day, said this about Miriam. So he was not only impressed how one person could, you know, get a hold of so many informations and pack them in so organized files that he was just like not impressed, he was astonished. So he said from that moment it was a privilege to work together with Miriam, you know, on solving this case. And through his connections he gathered a team that was ready to bust Sama. But the bad news at the time were that Sama actually disappeared from that address. So, but only briefly, only shortly, right? So in the meantime, Miriam tried to, you know, gather some other intel to find some and track down some other members, so she wouldn't waste any time. However, on September the 15th, 2014, one man walked into a store to purchase headphone set. And this is like the ultimate proof that karma actually exists. So the owner of the store was Luis, Miriam's son. So as we previously said, Luis moved out of the city and had his own store in another city. So imagine the chances of a guy walking into a store just to buy some random headphones, and it turns out that the owner is Miriam's son. So son of a woman who tracks down and hunts down Sama. So it was a really good news. Luis immediately knows that that was the guy his mother is looking, and he informed her, then she informed the federal agent, and they come to the place and arrest the guy. Now it turns out that Sama was not a hardcore guy at all, because he started to give the names pretty quickly. And the first name he gave is actually the name of a 18-year-old kid, believe it or not. It was a kid named Christian Gonzalez, and you know, they move in on him and bring him back to questioning as well. So the kid was like really weak, we can say that, because obviously he didn't know what mess he got into, basically. And they started to break him down rather quickly. And in what point he was, you know, crying, he was whining, he was very hungry. And at that point Miriam stepped in and said, let me just handle this. And I don't know if it was a psychological trick from her side on, or she was generally a good person, which I believe, truly believe that she was. And even in this case, when you face your child's abductor, you want to show some humanity, you know, because she actually said, if he's hungry, I'm gonna bring him some food. And she brought him some food. And she said, no matter what he did, he's still a child and I'm still a mother. So from this example, you can see how big, warm-hearted this person actually was. So that move made the kid drop his guard really fast. And he started spilling beans like nobody. So basically they knew so much of everything. Ultimately, his answers led them to a site, and I think it was in desert or something, but it was actually a site of a burial, and not only for one person. It was a mass grave. So I assume, you know, they took their people day off and, you know, dumped them all together in a mass grave. The whole team was brought on the site and started searching, you know, and identifying, and Miriam was actually able to find Karen's scarf, I believe. And unfortunately later they would manage to find her femur bone. So unfortunately Miriam was right from the very beginning, and this was just basically to confirm that she knew all along. Karen was dead. Now imagine this state of emotion right now. You just find out that your child is no longer with you. you are so determined in your goal to bringing all the people that did this to justice that you just continue going. So I cannot imagine how strong you must be. So in upcoming weeks, she continued to gather informations and to track down the remaining members of a group that kidnapped and killed her daughter. And some members were already in jail, and some members were of course hiding, and some of them decided to start new lives. However, they wouldn't escape the hand of justice from Miriam. At this point, she was getting like really famous, and everybody was afraid of her, right? So imagine that a woman in her like late 50s presents like a big threat to a big bad mean cartel. So it's kind of comical situation, but you can see how much fear she has struck into the local gangs and cartel itself. So because of her getting, famous and her fight was getting more recognized, she started getting anonymous tips on the members of the cartel who were in hiding or who were trying to start a new chapter. And she got a tip on a guy that tried to, sweep all his bad things under the rug and try to become a newly formed Christian, so devoted to God and things like that. But she tracked him down, and the police actually arrested him in a church. So that was the good news. Now, another tip she received was about a guy that was selling flowers, believe it or not, near the border. So imagine being a former member of the cartel, so like drug trafficking, abducting, shooting and things like that, and you decide suddenly all of a sudden to sell flowers near the border on the side of the road. Like I said, it was getting comical. However, she decided she's gonna drive immediately and face the guy in person. So, and she actually did that. So she got into the car and drove to his location, and she got out of the car. So the guy sees Miriam. And what do you think the first reaction from the guy was? Like to draw a gun or something? The guy was so scared that he started, running. So imagine this, a small woman in late 60s pulls up, gets out of the car, and a member of the cartel sees her, gets scared to death, and starts running. So he starts running and she starts chasing him, right? And she actually got him. So she got to him and managed to press him against the wall. Imagine that, man. Imagine that. So he's up against the wall and she takes out the gun and basically says, if you move, I'll shoot you. And that's it. So there's no negotiation. There's nothing. So simple, plain sentence. If you move, you're done. So as the guy was, as she was holding the guy to the gunpoint, she called the police. They got to the crime scene, not crime scene because crime was not committed, and arrest the guy. And that's it. Easy peasy. One of the last victims of Miriam Rodriguez was a young woman that she chased across the street, right? And this is when unfortunate things of events occur, because she broke her foot while chasing the victim. And she was forced to wear like casts, right? And to walk on crutches. So that wasn't a good sign, obviously. And I personally think that this event was one of the reasons for the last chapter. As you guys concluded, maybe to this point, that this story doesn't have a happy ending. Miriam was getting really famous and her fight was all over the place, all over the stuff, and it's not surprised that she and her family, her son and her older daughter, were receiving death threats basically every single day. But even despite that, she was so, determined to push out her, initial goal, that she just said, no matter how many threats I receive, I will just, keep pushing. I will accomplish what I signed up for. And the thing is that not only Cartel was sending the threats, but local gangs as well. So she was against the whole corrupt system in the country. Not only in the city, in the country basically. And that right there actually tells you a lot about this person. Now the thing is that she asked the authorities for help, for protection, and in some way they, did do that, but they didn't send like the guys that will constantly be there in front of the house, but more like occasional patrols that, swing by the house and make sure that everything is all right. But basically, as you guys presume, that just wasn't enough. And unfortunately, on May 10th, 2017, when she was returning home, I don't know where she was, but she pulled in front of her house, and as she, got up from the car with her cast and her crutches, a white truck filled with prison escapees pulled over behind her and fired 14 rounds in her body, of which I think 13 hit her. Imagine that, 14 rounds. So not 3, not 5, not 7, so 14. So they just had to make sure that, she's gone. And unfortunately, she died on the way to the hospital. After her death, she was buried with her daughter so they can be together in the afterlife. And the public outcry at that time, so the specific, locals that were supporting and, giving tips and informations, was so great that even the corrupt system, even the corrupt police had to do something and finally started, to look for the remaining gang members. However, in the upcoming months, weeks, months, years, they only managed to get 2 of them. So that's it. So some got away, but some just didn't manage to escape the wrath of Miriam Rodriguez. And for the end, I just wanted to say how actually honored I am to be able to cover this story, because I believe that Miriam Rodriguez is actually a true life superhero. And this woman was so good person that even despite all the atrocities they inflicted upon her, abducting her child, she still found the kindness even in the most horrible moments. And this just proves that, if we all had an ounce of determination and discipline that Miriam had, I mean, only the sky would be the limit, basically. But, when a tragedy like this strikes you and your family and nobody wants to help you, you get no help from the police, and they must be obligated to help you. You get every door shut in your face, in front of your nose, and you're completely alone in your fight, and you still manage to do all the things she did. And not against some random people. I remind you, it was a cartel, so Cartel was her target. So I really cannot comprehend how much bravery, how much determination and will Miriam had. And to carry all this on your shoulders, on your back, alone, this burden with such, emotions in the mix, is just, in my opinion, it's incredible. This woman deserves to be praised every single day, and I think she deserves some kind of statue or something in that city, because her actions inspired so many people not to go completely quiet against, injustice system and everyday occurrences that unfortunately happen in San Fernando and in that region. So what I'm trying to say is that her fight will leave deep marks. Alright, I guess that is for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one, because I know I did. Because basically this is a unique story. This is different from what I usually do. We have a protagonist here, unlike many antagonists which I did in the past, and I'm so once again honored and glad that I had the opportunity to, in some kind of way, show my respect for Miriam. I'm gonna also give a little post-credit scene, so make sure you stick around till the end. Until the next time, Alex, the casual detective, signing out.